Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Grand Admiral Thrawn has made his grand appearance at last, and his introduction was one to remember. The Chimera loomed ahead, and inside of the hangar was a huge crowd of stormtroopers, but not any kind of stormtroopers that we've seen before. Much like the troopers seen in The Mandalorian, these ones have their armor in a state of disrepair. It's a bit dirtier, broken, and tightly mended. Some are being held together with red twine, and others have the cracks of their armor glued together with a gold substance. And now this frightening cult-like army has been given a name: the Night Troopers. In a resounding unison, these troops state their undying allegiance to their new overlord by chanting the name Thrawn upon his entrance. And then of course, to top it all off, we have a trooper with a completely new design that we have never seen before: Thrawn's right-hand man, Captain Enoch. The underlings of Thrawn are not to be underestimated, and I highly doubt that any of these men are going to be mere cannon fodder for our Jedi heroes. In fact, we believe that there is something far more sinister at work that makes the Night Troopers extremely dangerous. So in today's holocron, we are going to discuss the primary theory that we have concerning these stormtroopers, how it relates to real-world history, and how it could mean big things going forward for Thrawn. Now, let us begin. Let's state what everybody is thinking. This is an undead army. The whole Marok situation raised several eyebrows when it was practically confirmed that Marok had been some sort of undead Night Sister created monster. Upon Ahsoka's slash to his midsection, an outpouring of dark green energy exploded from his body as he died. We weren't really given an explanation for this, but just from referencing beings like Savage Opress, we can quickly deduce what happened with Marok. Ever since then, we've all been on the lookout for more undead soldiers, and it seems we've been faced with a whole army of them. The idea of zombified underlings is definitely nothing new to Star Wars though. In canon, the Night Sisters of Dathomir used an ancient ritual to revive their dead against the Separatists, telling us that this is something that the Night Sisters have performed before. In Legends, there is a very long history of various times Sith Lords have tried to raise their own army of the dead, trailing all the way back to the days of the ancient Sith. But our first interaction with the idea of reanimating the corpses of the dead from a Sith spell is known as the Saiwanaka Hoya Kut. This spell was first seen and used by the Sith Emperor and sorcerer Darth Kagrosh, who had the ability to reanimate the dead either fresh or skeletons. These undead soldiers would then fight for the user at their command and behest. The ability to raise the dead in this way was passed down through generations of Sith, and it appeared to have made a run-in with the Night Sisters. Ventress in Legends also knew this spell, as she used it in the comics during the Battle of Omhadun. In her duel with Anakin and Obi-Wan, Ventress would reanimate the dead bodies of the nearby Gungan soldiers to fight for her. However, there's a clear distinction with the kind of reanimation that the Night Sisters are now doing for such beings like Marok, and perhaps the Night Troopers. The Saiwanoka Hoya Kut seems to be one only able to bring the corpses back for more or less mindless thralls. However, the reanimation ritual used for the Night Troopers is clearly far more advanced, since they retain their intelligence and individuality, only with complete and utter loyalty to Grand Admiral Thrawn. This is more closely tied to what we saw from Savage. Perhaps these reanimated soldiers have undergone a more sophisticated ritual and has not only brought them back to life, but has also enhanced them to become super soldiers. This all honestly reminds me a lot of the Sith Battle Lords, which in something in Legends is very similar along the vein of being an undead super soldier. The next thing we wanted to mention was the significance of the armor that these Night Troopers wear. The dress code certainly has changed for this new era of Imperials, and the implications are quite frightening. Thrawn was known for running a tight, clean ship. He encouraged creativity, but he was ultimately adherent to uniform and liked things to be pristine. So, of course, the operations would run as smoothly as possible. That meant that he noticed every wrinkle and flaw in his subordinates' uniforms, able to ascertain how they'll perform at their tasks based on how they chose to present themselves. But the old order of the Empire has passed away, and the Empire is no more as we once knew it. Thrawn is what is left of that dead order, and his Night Troopers now sport a unique design that almost represents exactly how Thrawn himself has changed. The art of repairing something with gold actually comes from our own world in Japan. The practice is known as kintsugi, the practice of using a gold adhesive to repair broken pottery or other possessions. What this symbolizes is the embracing of one's flaws and imperfections by making these imperfections of the pottery stand out to the eye. In Thrawn's case though, I believe it is symbolic of his character growth during his time in exile. After his defeat by Ezra, he has accepted that he is not infallible and that he has flaws. And yet despite those flaws, he refuses to let the Empire die no matter what they've endured. Speaking of gold, let's talk about the leader of the Night Brothers and Captain Enoch. From his look to his name, there is a lot to discuss. He has one of the most impressive and unique stormtrooper designs that we've ever seen. And just like Marok, we've never heard of him, and we know practically nothing about him. It seems that Enoch has risen from the ranks of the soldiers that Thrawn already had on board the Chimera by the time of the launch at the Battle of Lothal. Or perhaps he was among many of the speculated bodies that lie in the catacombs that lie in wait in Peridia from the ancient Dathomiri. What we have seen from Enoch at the moment isn't enough to go off of to really talk about at length. But what we can look into is his name, which I believe holds extreme significance to who he is. Enoch is a reference to the Christian and Hebrew Bibles. Enoch was a man that lived before the time of Noah in a post-Eden corrupted world. In this time of great corruption, Enoch was a man who walked faithfully with God all of the many years of his life. A righteous man who might have been the second only to Jesus Christ in that of morality. According to popular belief and the account from Genesis, God rewarded Enoch for his righteousness by never having him suffer death, and he was instead taken up to heaven while he was still alive. Translated. So what could this possibly correlate to Captain Enoch of the Night Troopers? The symbolism is clear. All of the Night Troopers and even the Night Sisters like Morgan hold a cult-like faith in Grand Admiral Thrawn. Thrawn in this case is being a representative of their god, their salvation if you will. So if we are going to take this at face value, it would be indicative of Captain Enoch's fierce devotion and loyalty to Thrawn. However, I think that Enoch is too specific of a name to stop here. We can definitely go further. Enoch of the Bible was taken to a higher plane of existence by a divine being in reward for his righteousness. Perhaps Captain Enoch proved to be such an efficient and well-proven soldier that Thrawn elevated him to second in command, and had him be the very first one to undergo the undead super soldier treatments. He was, in effect, the prototype for the rest of the Night Troopers aboard the Chimera. Or Enoch could have been a dead Night Brother in the catacombs of the Dathomiri in wait for a savior. From what we've deduced so far, we definitely invite all of you to discuss this amongst yourselves. It is difficult to say exactly where this is all going, because this actually is one case where Legends knowledge isn't going to give us much to go off of. In Legends, Thrawn indeed was ready to build an army of his own. However, he would bring back the cloning program done by the Kaminoans and not use the undead. Of course, Thrawn chose a different host for the clones, and in fact, had several prime specimens ready. But what was incredibly interesting about he engineered these clone troopers was he specifically made them to combat Luke Skywalker. Thrawn's clone army had their DNA spliced with that of Ysalamiri. For those of you who are not aware, the Ysalamiri are rare reptiles, ones that are able to project an anti-force barrier around them. The force cannot touch them or manipulate them whatsoever, and they cannot even be detected from within it. The field they project is large enough to protect a whole humanoid person from any effects of the force at all. In fact, they can't even be sensed. Luke describes the presence of the Ysalamiri like a hole or a void in the Force, like a big gray dark area in his vision that he cannot pierce. This was the same way he described feeling the presence of Thrawn's new clone troopers. It doesn't appear though that these Night Troopers are immune to the Force, at least not that we know of yet. Otherwise Baylan, Shin, and the Night Sisters would have been having negative reactions in the presence of the troopers. Having said that though, in Rebels, we have seen a statue of the Ysalamiri in Thrawn's office. Clearly Thrawn already knows about them, but is yet to employ them in his plans. It is possible that we could see a Force-immune foe sometime in the near future with the Night Troopers. But besides that, this undead army situation is mostly uncharted territory. Just about anything could come from this, but an army of zombified super soldiers is deadly enough without the cunning leadership of Grand Admiral Thrawn. I believe that we have great things to expect from the Night Troopers, and specifically Captain Enoch. But now of course, I turn it over to you. What are your thoughts about this? What are your thoughts on the Night Troopers? And what are your thoughts on Enoch? Also, the tattered armor of the Stormtroopers and what it represents. As always, my friends, thank you for visiting the channel, and may the Force be with you.